I was humbled, blown away to be asked to come and speak to you. I know a bit about the Y from family and friends all across the country. Several of my family and friends use Ys, have interacted with Ys, volunteer for Ys, are in board positions. My wife and kids and nephews have been campers and counselors, and I hold this organization in unbelievably high esteem. I also know who else you've had at podiums such as this, and I was, as I said, humbled to be asked. So I hope that this is a good interactive session. I'll talk for around 30 minutes, and then I think we have lots of time for questions and answer. What I want to talk about today is who we are. That's code for a little commercial about heart and stroke. How we've changed, what we're trying to do now, because it's different. We've had a big change since unification. And then why, very briefly, I feel our foundation and the YMCA could do some amazing things together. This quote I found, and I really think it, to me, says everything about the Y, even though it's not specific to the Y. It's in every community. I'm not tall enough to look at the monitor, but it's black, so it doesn't matter. In every community, there's work to be done. In every nation, there are wounds to heal. In every heart, there is power to do it. And you guys are doing it. And you're helping communities, Canadians one by one, and communities get stronger. And that's really inspiring to me. So a bit about heart and stroke. We're young compared to you. We're only 60 years old. You're a century older and more powerful in the communities for sure. We have about 700 employees, and we have over 2 million donors. And we are known first and foremost for investing in research. Last year, we invested $38 million to support, in total, we support about 1,500 researchers in the country at any one time, because every year we give out new grants, and those grants are roughly 3 years old. They endure for 3 years. We're the largest funder of heart and stroke or heart and brain research in the country after the federal government. So what do we do other than research? Well, it's through the evidence of the research and through community engagement that we help communities and that we help the professional medical practitioners across the country, that we advise government on how we can make Canadians healthier and how we can empower Canadians to live healthier lives. But some of that's new, and I'll get into that in a little while. The evidence from the research that we fund, I think about it as we grow research. We invest, the crop of research comes out, we harvest the findings. We also have a team that looks at all the research around the world to the best of our ability and resources. And from that, we then are informed about what needs to be done to make Canada a healthier and safer environment in our diseases, cardio and cerebral vascular disease. So we are working constantly to be the thought leaders of heart disease and stroke in the country. And again, where most of our effort has gone is into the acute care, saving lives work. Now, we are spending more time in preventing disease by giving Canadians the tools, the resources, and the information that empower them to live healthier lives, so they won't even be touched by our diseases. We are continuing to work in saving lives in acute care for both heart disease and stroke. And we are starting to move into promoting recovery in more ways than just research, which is being there for when people come out of the hospital and supporting rehabilitation programs and starting to work on chronic disease management. So what does this look like? It means that we funded the research that has helped a child with a heart defect survive and live a healthy life. We funded the research in the 90s that led to the first in utero heart surgery at sick kids about 3 years ago. We help men and women get back to a healthier, more active life after a stroke or a heart attack. We help people understand what we say, know your numbers, that it's important to know your numbers, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your waist circumference. And we teach kids in schools across the country the importance of being healthy and active. And how do we do this? We do it with our volunteers. It is only because of our volunteers that we are as successful as we are. As was mentioned, we have 140,000 volunteers across the country. So that's over 200 volunteers per employee or per staff member. Most of the people who interact with heart and stroke meet our volunteers first, get their first handshake from a volunteer, are recruited to be part of the volunteer team by volunteers. And my team of employees and staff says, well, you know, we had this event and we raised a lot of money. And I'm very quick to remind them, we didn't raise very much money at all. The volunteers raised the money. And the volunteers organized the event. And it's without the volunteers, we just wouldn't be as impactful as we are. And our goal is to have more volunteers help us. So they do everything for us. They raise money, they organize events, they go door to door, they speak at events for us, they advocate on our behalf, whether it's with governments or the food industry or other institutions. They also do our mission work. So all those 1,500 researchers and those grants that we give out, they're peer-reviewed by researchers and lay people. I don't decide who, or we don't decide who we give the money to. The volunteer researchers do that. They review the research in a blind, they rate them. I think about it like they get a figure skater score. And what I do is I just go down the list until we run out of money this year. And that we have a budget for research, and that's how we decide. And that's over 100 people who go to Ottawa and work there for over a week, just reviewing them all, or coming to the final meeting to review them all. We have families that have been volunteering for us for generations. And of course, we have our survivors who volunteer and speak for us. We simply couldn't do it without the volunteers. I want to talk a bit about Preunification because it was very historical for us. Prior to unification, we operated as 10 independent, legally independent, and quite frankly, functionally independent organizations, and we had one national federated body that went coast to coast. I described that organization nationally as quite anorexic. They did amazing work on a shoestring because their budget was tithed from the provinces, and there was always that resentment between where the money should be spent and how. But the national group did do great work. Each province did also great work because we've had tremendous success, but there was very little exchange of talent, resources, and best practices. There was lack of communication between the provinces. There was a very complicated governance structure, and it was almost impossible to do anything nationally. So we had no relationships with national corporations, and we didn't do our programming nationally, except, well, the peer review research was done nationally, but the funding was done provincially. So even how we funded and what got funded was done provincially. And we could never agree on bold initiatives that required investment. Still, despite all that, we were incredibly impactful. We, over our lifetime of 60 years, have invested $1.4 billion in research. We've had, in the last 10 years, the smoking rate drop from 25% to 17%. And in the last 60 years, the rate of heart disease and stroke death was more than 1 in 2 deaths in Canada came from heart disease and stroke, and today it's much closer to 1 in 4. And from an on-the-ground acute care perspective, in the last 15 years, we've transformed the way stroke care is delivered in the country. So 15 years ago, if you had a stroke and you dialed 911, the ambulance would arrive and take you to the nearest hospital with the lights and siren off. And today, it's time is brain, everyone knows that, and you go to a designated hospital, not the nearest one, and hopefully you get into an MRI and a CAT scan, and if you're a fortunate person and you have a certain type of stroke, you can get the clot-busting drug that we helped fund and bring to Canada. All that's new in the last 15 years. Just like stents and things are new over the last 40 or 50 years. And because of all this, the death rate has dropped by over 75% in the last 50 years. So with all that, you would say, well, what's the rationale to go national or to become combined? And it really came down to the donors and the volunteers expecting more impact. It was that we looked at 5 to 20-year projections for us, very community-based oriented fundraising, and our status quo wasn't looking good. Volunteerism is going down. Community fundraising is much more challenging. And government fundraising, although it's a very, very small part of our revenue, is going down. And donor expectations are going up. Scrutiny about the efficiency and the impact of the organization. So we needed to change. And despite all the great successes we've had, today, every 7 minutes, someone still dies of heart disease and stroke. So the journey's not over for us. So how did it happen? How did we unify? And I don't say that what we did is good for anyone else, and I make that very clear. It had been tried several times at Heart and Stroke, and it had not been successful. The timing was right for us, and the volunteers made it happen. It wasn't staff-led. If I had led it as a staff person, I wouldn't be standing here today. So the volunteers came together because they wanted more from Heart and Stroke. And now senior employees were at the table, and when I say at the table, it wasn't rooms as big as this, but it was well over 120 or 130 people that were involved in workshops with the pro bono support of Bain, McKinsey, BCG, to facilitate and educate us on what different models could be out there. And we worked on creating our own model that would be good for us. And there was a lot of storming for sure, but it actually brought us much closer together. And in fact, of the 120 or 130 in the room, most of the people had never met one another. And so it was really quite an exciting series of meetings. And we had many of those, and we hammered out the agreement. And what's it mean? It means more impact. It means that we're going to be stronger in each province. That's the driving factor, to have more impact and to be stronger in each province. Because for us, it's all about community and it's all about healthcare, and that happens in communities and provinces. The only work that the federal government really gets involved in is First Nations, and we're trying to work hard to actually get them to do better work there because it's nowhere where it should be. So what's it mean? It means we're going to be more supporter-centric. supporting our volunteers and donors better. We're going to share our best practices. We're hoping to capitalize on our ideas faster and move them across the provinces where there is the similar need in another province. It doesn't mean one size fits all. It means we build or leverage good, highly impactful, evidence-based programming and offer it across the country. And where there is a need, it therefore goes. It's not top-down. It means that we will have a much simpler governance structure, and that builds efficiency and allows for better decision or timely decision making. And we're working in a much more collaborative way. So people who are dealing with stroke are now talking to one another, or heart-healthy children and youth, or major gifts, which is a new initiative for us, because the average donation's been about $50 for us through most of our time. And also, when we figure out an area that we want to work, or we find a program that is really highly efficacious, that's already been designed, we don't reinvent the wheel. We share that. And so the notion of having the best in class of what we already have and sharing it across the country, the notion of take it if it meets the needs of what's going on in the province, and the notion of having single point of accountability is very, very important, because that allows for decision making, and that allows for someone to call a meeting and get everyone together and decide. There's also efficiency benefits, and I won't go into them at length, but there was a lot of low-hanging fruit here, and one is telco. We changed our telco suppliers to be the same company across the country for all of our trunk lines, all of our data transfer, our web videos and things like that. And over 5 years, we're saving $1.5 million. We've centralized our legal services. We have one part-time lawyer in-house in Toronto, and all the legal work flows through her, and we're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars. We didn't even know that much legal work was going on. We had 11 banking relationships. We now have one. We have over 130 servers, and we're going to go down to below 30. We had multiple investment fund managers, because one of our practices is we park the dollars that we've committed for research in the out years. So we have, one of the things we've been criticized for is we have a lot of reserves on our balance sheet. Trust me, I don't get to spend that money except on the research that we've already committed it to. But that has the ability to make us a lot of money each year. It's $60, $90 million that we've committed in the out years. Now we're making more of that in a more efficient way. So there is money there, but it wasn't about efficiency. It was about the impact of making the community stronger. We also believe that we have am I on the right slide? Okay. Let me just see. Yes, okay. We also led to, we came up with this novel concept of distributive leadership, which is, there in essence is no head office. I could be located anywhere in the country. And we've really built a model where we're trying to put major functions all across the country. So we have HR in Quebec, we have research based in Ottawa, we have finance in Winnipeg, we have our head of mission in BC, we have our resuscitation support center in Alberta, and we're going to do more of that. Because what we're trying to create is this environment where in each province there's national, provincial, and community work, so that we're all on the same team. Distributive leadership is tough, but it's a belief that we're trying to embrace and make work. And we think it will help us long term. In terms of decision making, We're not necessarily making faster decisions, but we are making better decisions because we've got the right people at the right table, and we now have the technology through WebEx and GoToMeetings to get people together. And then we have an ability to make the tough decisions and move forward. And that's really important. And so the other thing is, now that we've pooled our resources, we have better subject matter expertise. We can afford to hire experts in certain areas. So we never had, believe it or not, a head of stroke for Canada, even though we're called Heart and Stroke. It was distributed, and so now we have subject matter experts in many areas, whether it be marketing, or we always had that subject matter expert in research, but in major gifts, in corporate, national corporate accounts, we didn't have. In communications, crisis management, a lawyer, things like that. So that's really helped us. Now I want to talk about our strategic plan. We developed a strategic plan, and we're really proud of it. And it was the first real action we did once we were unified. And we had 140 people of staff involved in it. We didn't do it with a small exercise of 5 or 10 people tucked away. I described it as the largest team building initiative I've ever orchestrated. And we had 140 people from across the country involved in it. And we did over 1,000 interviews externally with stakeholders, governments, researchers, survivors, donors, supporters. And we created a dedicated communications team that was constantly reporting out what these 140 were working on. So it wasn't in a black box. And so all the people who weren't involved were actually up to speed with what was going on and what were the issues we were wrestling with. And what that led to was significant buy-in of the plan. We then developed these 2 impact goals as the basis of the strategic plan. And they are to significantly improve the health of Canadians by decreasing their risk factors for heart disease and stroke by 10% by 2020, and to reduce the death rate of Canadians by 25% by 2020. We've never had these type of impact goals. So this is changing the way we're operating, because we now need to look at the initiatives we're doing and determine whether they will help us deliver these goals. And if they aren't, we're sort of saying no to a lot of good ideas so we can say yes to a few great ideas. And we developed a strategic plan on a page. And this is a roadmap for everyone. And everyone has it. We have a 60-page strategic plan document. We have a 20-page document that we give to supporters and donors with lots of pretty pictures. And we have a 1-page document that everyone carries or has at their office or their workstation. And it's really changed the way people think, because it's got our vision, our values, and then our 2 impact goals and the priority areas. Then the second thing we did post-unification was understand, and we really got this insight from the research we did about the strategic plan, is the attitudes towards our diseases. And what people said to us was, you're like a black box. We know you do great work, but we don't know what you do, heart and stroke. They also said, if I'm going to die, I might as well die of a heart attack on the 18th hole, when I'm in my late 80s. And the reality is that that's not how people die of our diseases. And so what we uncovered was there was a real issue with our brand connecting with and resonating with Canadians. So we developed national campaigns. And the first one really was to bring to light for Canadians the issues around our diseases. And I remember the first presentation from the head of the ad agency who came to present to us. Our first campaign was called Make Death Wait. And when he came to the meeting, he brought a 2x4. And he said, you need to whack Canadians over the head. And and just tell them how serious it is because of the lingering issues with chronic diseases and what's happening to our kids with childhood obesity and with the aging population. If we don't take care of our young and we don't have the middle age more active, there is going to be a massive crisis of health and crisis because we can't afford what we all expect we're going to get once we need the health of the healthcare system. So we started with this campaign called Make Death Wait, and it was, wow, heart disease and stroke are serious. 1 in 3 die before their time. So 1 in 3 die prematurely. The other thing was it's the #1 killer of women. The other thing is that heart disease and stroke kills 7 times as many women as breast cancer. And it got the attention of Canadians. And then the next thing was they reached out and said, well, what can I do about it? Or is there anything I can do about it? And we came up with this campaign called Make Health Last, which is, yes, you do have some control over your health destiny. In fact, for our diseases, it's about 80% of it is premature. So 80% of it you can control, 20% of it is your genetics or your family history. And some of the family history you can control. So we put a campaign out that told people you can change the last 10 years of your life. And we also developed e-tools and put them out on the net. And we've had 800,000 people use our e-tools, healthy, active lifestyle, smoking cessation, high blood pressure, things like that. And then, being a black box, we wanted to really get to, well, what do we do with your donations? And what we came up with is we create survivors. What do we do with your money? We create survivors. We let more people go home. And it reinforces that heart and stroke really saves lives. And so I'd like to show this commercial. I think it's the next one. Yep. So, thank you. The reason why I talked a bit about the positioning or the messaging of heart and stroke and the story there is because there was a problem with the lack of connection to our cause. And prior to unification, we really couldn't have or wouldn't have done anything about it because it required consensus and it required significant investment. I'll show you the video and then explain this.
Hello, I'm Adrienne Clarkson. I was the 26th Governor General of Canada, and today I am proud to be the honorary chair of this year's Heart Month. In the short time I've been involved with the foundation, I've quickly learned that we're all part of a very special family, and I'm honored to work with such passionate, dedicated people who share my vision for making Canadians healthier. Over the past 60 years, foundation donors, volunteers, researchers, and partners have made a tangible impact in reducing heart disease and stroke across Canada. Thanks to you, as well as those before you, heart disease and stroke have dropped by 75% over the past 60 years. But there's still much to be done. What we have achieved to date is remarkable. is what we do today that matters most. Because today, heart disease and stroke will claim a Canadian life every 7 minutes. In the time it takes to bring a pot of water to boil, a father, mother, sibling, or close friend could have their life cut short, leaving loved ones behind and robbing families of years of cherished memories. We can change this. Each day, we have an opportunity to improve the health of every Canadian family and not only prevent disease, but promote living, healthy living. Together, we can do more than imagine lives free of heart disease and stroke. We can make it happen. Thank you.
So again, we never thought about having an honorary chair. We couldn't have had Adrienne Clarkson do it if it was just in Ontario or just in Quebec. She needed a national stage, and we gave it to her. She suffers from heart disease, and she's an amazing advocate for us, and she does door to door, and we just it never dawned on us. And quite frankly, pre-unification, if we'd had thought about it, we might not have all agreed on it. So whether it's the Make Death Wait, Make Health Last, We Create Survivors, that's helping the provinces. Whether it's inspiring our 80, 90, 100,000 volunteers, because they all saw this video before they went out and did door to door, it's inspiring them. And then she's been at thank you receptions for us. And that's helping the provinces, not in mission work, although it is, it's in the fundraising side of it. So now I want to talk about the change and why I think it's really important us to collaborate. This is our plan on a page, and I've circled prevent disease, protect lives, and promote recovery. For most of our time, we've been in the save lives area. We've spent, or protect lives, we've spent 90% of our money there. And the research in the strategic plan said, we need to do more in prevention, heart and stroke, and we need to do more in patient support. The benefits that we've seen of the achievement of reduced death from our diseases is about to turn around because of childhood obesity, because of the aging demographic, because of the more diverse society, and because of the way the foods we're eating and the lifestyles we're leading. And there are more people surviving an acute attack. We have 1.6 million survivors. But this isn't a strength for us, really. We have the expertise, the knowledge, but we aren't in lots of communities. I mean, our volunteers are, and they're out there, but they don't have this, the mass touch that we're trying to build. And so we're looking at ways to be more impactful in these new growth areas for us, which is is the mandate that was given to the employees in terms of preventing disease and promoting recovery. So in terms of preventing disease, we are doing research in this area. So one is a major 10,000 person study. It's called the Tomorrow Project, and it's in partnership with cancer, and it's going to be 40, 60 years long, following a diverse group of Canadians and their kids about heart disease and stroke. And it's the first time anyone in the world has been this diverse in terms of diverse communities, equal balance, men, women, First Nations, and it's very exciting. The benefits will come a long way. So we're not just going into prevention through health promotion, we're also doing research there. We're also doing work on nutrition, things like salt, sugar, trans fats, and trying to get society to change. We're also going to be focusing on children and youth with healthy, active lifestyles, and adults through walking and more exercise. There's going to be a big focus there. In saving lives, we're going to continue with our research. We're going to continue with our AEDs across the country and resuscitation. we teach CPR to about 500,000 Canadians a year. And in promoting recovery, we're working on, again, upstream on research. In this area, we spent almost no money on survivor support. All of our money, which is about $2 million a year, has gone into upstream research for stroke survivors. Because we found when we did, this was in the early 2000s, when we did a white paper, no one in the world was working on stroke survivor research. So we started an initiative in Canada, and it's multi-sited, and it's called the Canadian Partnership for Stroke Recovery. But long-term, we want to be in the chronic disease management business and helping Canadians. We want to work more in the community, and we know that for us as a nation to be able to afford what's going to be coming, we need to do more home care and community-based care. It's $800 for a person in a hospital a day. It's $175, this is what the government pays for rehab, outpatient rehab, and it's $60 a day for home visits. And we all pay for it. And most of us would prefer to have a home visit than go to a hospital. And many of us with acute stroke can't get to a hospital. So these are the shifts that are going on that this STRAT plan is driving us to embrace. So one of our first major partnerships was with the universities and hospitals across the country. We looked at the research we've done in the past, and we said, who are our big partners? We'd never looked at it before. There are 19 institutions where most of our money goes, and we didn't give it to the institution, we gave it to their rock star researchers there. And what we found is we had a relationship with their researchers, but we didn't have a relationship with the institution. So they call their researchers, we call their researchers our researchers, and they're the same thing. And many of the heads of major hospitals and deans of medical schools got their first funding from Heart and Stroke Foundation. And it's a very well-kept secret. And we're, in fact, the largest funder of UBC, period. Period. Our math says we're the largest single funder, other than a government, to any of the hospitals on University Avenue, or to the majority of the hospitals on University Avenue, for research. So we've changed the relationship with them, and we're now meeting top to top and figuring out what they're doing long-term, what we're doing long-term, and how we can work more in partnership. And we've given them long-term funding for 10 years. And it's not more funding, it's just a floor. So we've committed this $300 million. That is setting ourselves up to have more impact with the same amount of money. Partnerships are very, very important to us. We have a history of being in good partnerships, but not major ones. And we think that by working with you, we can help Canadians, and we can help have stronger communities. And that's really, really exciting to us. And we spent a lot of time looking at who would be a wonderful partner for us, and who has the same culture and the same aspirational goals and very aligned mission. And we felt it was the YMCA. So we are, with this step forward, we are ecstatic. I have a slide that I gave to my interviewing committee when I got my first job at Heart and Stroke, which is go slow to go fast. If they want someone who's going to race and deliver deliverables ahead of what the organization can do, that's not me. I believe in moving forward every day, but building capability for strength and more impact over time, and I'm a long-term thinker. And that's, like, we describe our strategic plan at Heart and Stroke as it's a 20-year mission plan, it's a 5-year organizational plan, and it happens to have 3 years of financials bolted under it. And we scurry around to see if we can deliver on our financial numbers to keep the plan going, and if not, we tweak it a bit, or we invest more money if we're more successful. But we really hold near and dear this plan of prevention, saving, and promoting recovery, hopefully for the next 20 years. And so we pick our partners very, very carefully. And so it's very exciting to be here. We know you do a lot in the area of children and youth, and we're very excited about that. We do work in children and youth with our Jump Rope for Heart. We're in almost 4,000 schools with our objective to grow to 5,000 and 6,000, and we have over 750,000 participants every year. And we want to give them more information and tools about healthy, active lifestyle. We're also working across Canada on many different programs in each province, and these are the programs that I talked about that are different in each province but really efficacious. We have Spark grants in Ontario, and we've spent a lot of time with our grants, and we've funded many YMCA initiatives, small initiatives across Ontario with those. And so there has been a lot of collaboration, and we're very pleased with that to date. So we've been involved with the Kingston Family YMCA. We've been involved with Simcoe, Muskoka, and Simcoe County District on a school program with elementary schools. We've been involved with the YMCA of Greater Toronto, working with 28 community after-school care sites in Toronto and Scarborough, providing communications material, training, evaluation, quality assurance, and reference materials. And we've been working with Living with Stroke program in Hamilton. South Central Stroke Network have partnered with the Y to set up and review program on Fit for Function. And we have our Living with Stroke program. And we've received partial funding from CIHR for 3 trials with Living with Stroke. So in conclusion, this is a real new area for us in terms of spending a lot more of our leadership time, our board time, and our volunteer time in prevention and in promoting recovery. We're further ahead in prevention than we are in promoting recovery, but we will get to the promoting recovery. And we think that by working with you and in partnership, we can help make the communities, make Canadians healthier, happier. We can have more engagement in our overall health and our well-being. And as you can tell from us, without community, without our volunteers, we would be nothing. And so we truly depend on our volunteers, and we truly depend on Canadian citizens to support us, and we want to be there, like you want to be there, to help them have a happy, healthy, vibrant life in Canada. And I'm really excited about where we're going to go from here. Thank you.
So I would ask Bahadur and Scott to please join us on the stage as we sign the document celebrating our new partnership.